Hello and welcome to the magic of fishing. Today you join me on a wet, blustery autumn afternoon, but I am grinning ear to ear because I am back on the banks of the beautiful Hampshire Avon. And although it looks very different to when I last visited in the summer, it really does look special in its autumn finery. The leaves are turning, the berries are bright red, and the water still has some clarity despite the fact it's been chucking it down non-stop for the last 36 hours. It's the first real spell of rain, solid rain like this, that I can remember since the beginning of this year. But I may have timed things right, because although I've been told this stretch of river's been fishing hard, it really has had a dump of fresh water in and some real pace coming through the river, washing the leaves away and the dying weeds. There's no sign of the ranunculus that was out in flower last time I was walking these banks, and I really can't wait to get fishing in these very different conditions to what I experienced last time. And just like the last time I was here, part of the problem is deciding where to fish first. There's just so many fishy, lovely looking places to try, but I've decided to come to this small boulder weir just below the white water, where this man-made bank of big mossy boulders creates a steep drop off, and I've been tipped off there might be one or two perch to be had. And if you've seen one or two of my videos from earlier this autumn, you'll know that a good perch is a fish that I really would like to catch again. I've probably not had one over a pound since this spring when I fished a haunted estate lake in Surrey. But I have got form with the Hampshire Avon. My PB, a giant perch of nearly £4, came from this river over a year ago now, last summer, when I was fishing the famous bridge pool on the Hampshire Avon. So I'm here for 2 days, and it's not going to be all about the perch. I've got an overnight stay ahead of me and a few hours to fish today, and then a full day ahead of me tomorrow. So I really look forward to exploring a bit more of this really mind-blowing fishery. And if you've seen any of those previous videos from when I first visited this stretch of river in the summer, you'll know I called it fishing paradise, certainly my fishing paradise. Caught some chub, grayling, trout, dace, lots of variety, and although I've been told it is fishing hard, I can't wait to wet a line. So let's dangle a worm off these boulders and see whether we can kick things off with a perch. Well, it really is one of those 4 seasons in one day kind of sessions already. Sunshine coming out for the first time in 2 days after another heavy downpour, and I'm going to start on a big juicy lobworm. What better bait is there for perch? I brought lots of maggots with me, lots of red maggots as well. We'll start with a few of those in the feeder. I've also got some dendrobina worms that I could chop up if I want to get a bit more scent in the water. But it's really a little bit like childhood fishing, this. I'm just going to lower the rig in. There's a good bit of depth there. That's very good. Never fished this spot before, although I have fished a little bit downstream of here, where there's a deep pool. And the second video I made from this private stretch over the summer saw me finish a very hot day. A real scorcher. I mean, there were so many of them, weren't there, over the summer, but a real scorcher of a day where very little was biting. and I finished that session fishing into the dusk, desperately hoping the chub that I'd seen swimming in that pool throughout the day might just switch on and take a bait, but it wasn't to be. And in these crystal clear river conditions, chalk stream conditions, it has been very hard work, so I hear, over the summer. But with this fresh water coming in, there is a tinge of colour in the water. That's when you can see the fish moving out of the deeper pools, the hiding places under the banks and under the snags, and starting to search for food. So whether that's the chub further down in that pool that I might have a go for this afternoon, or the perch that might be holed up in these boulders down below waiting to strike at prey, or even barbel that I know inhabit this lovely piece of water. Let's just hope I've got the conditions right, and I can really get a sense of what the place is like in autumn. And this couldn't be much more different from the last time I was here in June, not long after the start of the season, and I just couldn't quite believe my eyes walking the banks. There were dragonflies and damselflies everywhere. Say the ranunculus was in flower. The river's surface was covered in tiny white flowers like snow, and you could see the chub amongst other fish just cruising in the crystal clear water. Well, despite the overcast conditions and extra water in the river, there was nothing doing at that first spot, the boulder weir. A few small taps from small fish, but no sign of the big stripies, so I've come to do a bit of wading further downstream. I brought plenty of maggots with me, so I fancy running a float down for an hour or two, and we'll see whether I can get any bites this way. So here we go. Starting to create what will be a steady stream of red maggots down this very long, straight trot, but still a fascinating trot. Tree-lined banks, reeds. I'd guess it's about 3 to 4 foot deep, and there may be a bit of depth adjustment until I work it out, but I'll be trying to skim the bottom and hoping that this extra flow has brought a few fish out from under the bankside cover. That's a bite and a fish first run down, so that's very encouraging. I feel that's justified the move. Lovely little grayling. I last saw one of these beautiful fish on the lower Itchen not so long ago, if you've seen that video. The Lady of the Stream. But that's the power of maggots. Just double red maggots on a size 18, fishing nice and fine. A 3 pound Got the tangle there. £3 fluorocarbon hook length, which is on the light side when there's a chance of chub, but they are wary fish. And in this clear, shallow water, I don't want to be spooking anything with heavy tackle. And that is another good fish. Nice feeling fish. Very next run down. How about that? What a change that's been from the first hour, where I was struggling to buy a bite. And I would put money on this being a chub. It's holding really steadily in this powerful flow. It doesn't feel like a really big fish, but feels very nice to hook in something so solid so early on in this new spot. You just see the float riding above the surface, and that was quite early on in the trot as well. Olivet is coming up above the surface, and that's the only weight I've got down the line, a 5 gram Olivet for a 5 gram crystal trotter from Drennan. Very simple but low profile gear, so you know, I'm very conscious these fish are easily spooked. There he is, lovely fish. Just starting to tire, big white lips coming through the surface. What a start. I can just see those maggots in the top lip, so I'm not going to rush it. Here he comes. That's actually a very nice chub. Whoa, very nice. Not taking any chances with him, especially with no net, just handing him out. Oh, wow. That is magnificent. What a fish so early on. Fantastic. What a chub. An absolutely cracking autumn chub from the Hampshire Avon. What was that, second, third trot down? Real weighty fish. He's got some autumn condition, which is great to see. Really healthy fish. Stunner. Back into that lovely chalk stream water, spitting out maggots as he goes. Whoa. Well, they said the river had been fishing hard over recent weeks, and that's hardly surprising. It was low and clear, just like virtually every other river in the country, and they have all been hard work so far this season. But those two fish so early on go to show that when those conditions change, like they have this week, so can your fortunes. And yep, it's chucking it down again, right into my face. Not very pleasant to fish in, but that fresh water entering the river over the last day or two really has been raining non-stop and very heavily, combined with these overcast skies, the low pressure. That's the kind of change we're looking for as river anglers. As long as you're not getting a sudden influx of really cold water, the rising levels and the tinge of colour entering the river, that's a sign for the fish to start searching for that natural food that's getting washed in, the slugs, the snails, the worms, the beetles. Ha! I think we've got another species there, but a lovely little minnow. Another sign of being on a chalk stream. Don't get many of them where I live in Surrey. Oh, and it is doing what it's been doing for the last 2 days now. Pouring down. And there's another fish from early on in the trot, but I suspect a trout. There's been lots of splashing. Yeah. Always a joy to catch trout, but that's not what we've come for. I'll try and get them in as soon as possible. He's a lively one. And again, the joys of chalk stream fishing, you have no idea what's going to pull the float under next. In this case, a real lump of a trout who's come to the maggots, only just hooked. Straight back with him. A definite bend in the rod. Folks, the things I do for the magic of fishing. It's funny, isn't it? Us anglers, we moan all summer long that it's dry and bright and there's no water going in the rivers, and then when it does start raining, we're none too happy either, or certainly not in terms of the conditions for filming in. I've just come back to the bank to try and dry a few things off. Not much chance to dry myself off, but the camera, the mic, everything's getting soaked. And I think now I'm nearly back on dry land. I might have a little wander downstream and see whether I can find another likely looking trotting swim and have another go down there. Well, they say a change is as good as a rest, and it certainly feels that way to me. Having decided to move further downstream to a completely new area for me, the rain has finally stopped. It feels like the first time in days that there's been any serious break, and the sky's actually brightened a little bit over in the west. We are getting on in the afternoon now, and I knew I'd only get a few hours to fish this afternoon. Tomorrow will be my main chance. I suspect there may be some minnows here as well, but there's also some overhanging willows down the far bank, and although I'm fishing down the main, what I feel is the main channel and the main flow of the river, I'm not a million miles away from those overhanging branches. And if I was a chub, I might like to hang out under there and nip out to mug any food items coming down. So we'll give it a half an hour or so, and unless it really is productive, I might want to spend the last hour, that was a small fish, I might want to spend the last hour before dusk or into dusk back on the tip with a bigger bait, maybe some pellets, meat, or the worms, but trying for a better fish. Not that I'm not able to catch good fish on the float, of course, but there are a lot of minnows active today. And rather than start feeding up a new float swim with something like corn, I fancy fishing into dusk on the tip with a bigger bait, see whether we can get through these small fish. And we've already seen the chub are on the munch. Might be too much to hope for a barbel, but it'd be nice to try. And then I've got all of tomorrow, of course, to get back on the float. And maggot, it'd be nice if it stays a bit drier. The bait pouch is, oh, swimming. A fish, yeah, that's a fish. Yeah, the bait pouch is absolutely soaked through. And that didn't take too long in this new spot either. It's lovely to fish a river with plenty of fish in it and on the feed. Been some tough sessions, lots of great sessions as well this summer and early autumn. This looks to be a nice grayling. Some tough sessions, particularly on my local river way near home. It's not always lived up to expectations. No, it's a lovely grayling, let's not rush it. Lovely fish. Well, that's been an eventful last half hour or so. I've been chatting to a fellow angler, and you don't see many of them on this private stretch, but a lovely chap called Keith. And while I was talking to him, I hooked into something really solid. He said straight away, chub. And I was thinking very much the same. Right where you might expect them to be, down by the overhanging willow fronds. And he said there were a few big fish live around there. And no sooner as I hooked it, it had gone solid, it had gone through some weed or into a snag, and luckily pulled out, got the hook back. Didn't crack me off or anything, but never really felt the fish beyond the first few heavy thumps. But I am now wondering what that might have been. Anyway, Keith has told me about a spot further down on the opposite side, which might be worth a go for the final hour or two of daylight and into the dark. I think you've got to be off half an hour after sunset, so I think I'm going to head back to the bank, clamber out, get my tip gear again and move on down to spend the last hour or so trying for a biggie. Check this out for a classic end of session swim. Just a narrow gap in a big bed of reeds. And I've just been having a chat with Keith, who showed me the spot. Said there's a bit of deeper water along this run here, and it's produced some big chub, £6 plus for him in the past. And he's also seen a few barbel in the area as well, including a really big one, easy double figures, this summer. I'm just upstream from a bridge. I was actually trotting under this summer on my very first visit here, and again I could see the fish earlier in the day under that bridge, some big bream, chub, but couldn't really get amongst them that evening on the float. Plenty of dace and a trout or two. But again, it feels very different at this time of year. There's a bit of flow coming down, and although Keith said this is actually only just getting back to normal levels, he did say it's the most flow he's seen on it for quite some months, and therefore it does feel like a bite is possible. And we are just fishing for one bite in this last hour or so before I head back. And of course, it's raining again. Good for the river. Good morning and welcome back to the river. It will have been a few seconds for you since you saw me trying for a barbel or chub in the gloom, and that wasn't to be. But I've had a night away from the water, a good night's sleep in fact. I tried to get some of my stuff dry, which hasn't worked particularly well. The car was a bit damp this morning, but I've been to the local tackle shop again, got more maggots, and I'm back on the Hampshire Avon, raring to go. Got a bit more time today, and it's not raining. There's even a bit of blue sky around. So I'm really looking forward to having a wander. I've come to a completely new stretch, never fished it before, and I'm just going to do a bit of trotting like I enjoyed yesterday, see whether there might be any more chub, grayling, perhaps dace willing to bite. In fact, the only very minor disappointment this morning is that there's no evidence of all that rain that's come down over the last 2 or 3 days, almost constantly entering the river. I thought with an extra night there might be a bit more to see in terms of level or even a tinge of colour, but if anything there was a touch more colour in it yesterday, and I think the land's just so dry it's soaking up all the rain for now. That's not going to spoil my enjoyment one bit. I've not got my waders on today because I think I may be walking a bit further than yesterday, and it can get a bit uncomfortable doing that in waders, so I've just got the wellies on. And although it would be a bit easier if I could get into the river, it would be remiss of me not to have a few trots down to this bridge. Right at the bottom end of this beat, I'm intending to walk upstream on the opposite bank. After this, but got to try this deeper looking glide that goes under the bridge. It's much shallower beyond, and although we're much nearer a main road here, there's a bit of traffic noise in the background. Otherwise it really does feel like I'm on my own piece of river. It's a real privilege. It is a private stretch that I've managed to get permission to fish and to film on, but unfortunately I can't say where it is, and if you do recognise anything, please don't say anything in the comments. I hope you can understand I've made promises to the owners of this magnificent piece of river. So very, very lucky boy, and it's times like this I really do pinch myself. Having grown up, spent the first half of my life in Sheffield fishing the local canal and park ponds, local reservoirs, and then graduating onto the Trent and rivers like the Nene with the Sheffield Juniors squad. It's only in this second half of my life and since I started the channel that I've managed to fish such magnificent places as this, and I love sharing it with you, of course, at home. So I hope you're enjoying it. We'll give this another 10 minutes and then try and catch the first fish of the day. Right, I think that's enough feeding. I had problems with the minnows yesterday, and as much as I'm hoping these loose offerings might attract the attention of a chub or a grayling or any dace that might be there, I'm also aware it could be attracting hordes of greedy minnows. They were taking 2-3 maggots yesterday, and I have got some corn with me if you want to try that later, but maggots did also land me some nice fish. I've no idea really of the depth here. I'm just going off the fact that I can't see the bottom about 3/4 of the way across. I'd guess at about 3 or 4 foot, and it looks like it maintains that kind of depth down to the bridge before shallowing up. And from my previous visits here, or to other parts of the Hampshire Avon as part of this private fishery, I've often seen fish hanging around under the bridges. So it's exciting to have a first few trots. And that, oh, that was a bite and a nice feeling fish right under the bridge. Let's get some more maggots on and try again. I've just been doing a bit more feeding, giving it a rest, and I'm going to give it a few more trots before moving on. I think I've already proved my earlier theory that the chances tend to come early on, and I've no doubt I could fish here all day and eventually get some more fish taking, but I do want to explore more. So we'll give it a few more trots, and with this weak and low autumn sun pushing through the clouds. Oh, that is a fish under the bridge. Oh, and he's off. What a shame, that's two lost under the bridge. What is going on? Maggot has turned right over the hook. What a shame. Oh, folks, I was just about to say that although the low sun is combining with this ripple to make the float really hard to see, it's an absolute joy fishing here with a few leaves blowing off the trees and that sun glinting after all the rain we've had. Oh, but that's two fish hooked and bumped under the bridge. I think the first one was just bad luck in terms of a poor hook hold, but that second one was fishing double maggot and one of them had bent right over on the hook. Ah, what a shame. After patiently feeding it for a few more minutes as well. Come a little way up the river and this is another spot. It's hard to resist with that pollarded willow overhanging the water. Looks like there's a bit of depth down on this near side, so I'll give this a couple of quick goes. Down under the tree again. Ooh. That was a fish right under the willow where you might expect. And that's a healthy bend in this rod. Oh yeah, lovely chub. Just where you might have expected it. Not a big fish, but in this flow it's giving a really good account of itself. That was right under those trailing fronds. Ooh, that's a nice sound. I'm very relieved we've not lost another chub today. It would have felt a bit third time unlucky, that. Well, I love catching chub at any time of the year and from any river, but when it's from a crystal clear chalk stream, the middle of autumn, they're starting to get into that thick set winter condition. It's not a huge fish by any means, probably 2.5 3 pound, but gave a really good account of himself in that flow, and I think I'll give it 1 or 2 more casts down by that willow just to check there's not a few of his friends down there, but I probably have now used up another spot, and it's a roving session, so time to move on. But we'll release him up away from that snag. Oh, he shot off. Give it a few more goes. There's a fish on, not a big one, but a nice grayling, and that was after not too many runs down this fast little glide after a long walk. Just been having a look around really to get that net. The sun is shining and it's been hot, but very enjoyable walk. Let's have a look round here. Lovely. It's been really good to me, this first swim I've dropped in after the walk. I think I may have had some sound issues at one point, but I've had a couple of little trout as well as 2 small grayling, and bumped another fish, another small fish. But I think if I'm learning one thing or being reminded of one thing today, it's move on. Once the bites tail off and find some virgin water to try. The water's still crystal clear and I can see the bottom chalky white right the way across this swim, but this magnificent horse chestnut in its autumn colours down at the bottom of the swim may hold a few fish, and it feels good enough to just keep a bit of bait going in for a while before I even think about making a cast. Oh, whoa. Oh, it's a shame it's a trout. Wow. That took me by surprise. First trot down. Of course, I have been feeding it. Oh, but that shot by the tree. Lovely trout, straight back. Oh, and that went straight away again. I may have landed in Trout City here if this is another trout. It didn't run wildly off. I suspect now it does. Now it has rather. I suspect I'm in Trout City here. Oh, and now it's chucking it down. Time to get under one of these trees and just give it a break for a bit. Oh, it's sweeping down on strong winds. I'm lucky there's a few leaves left on this tree. Oh, more like yesterday this is. Some absolute beauties under this tree. Anyone for a game of conkers? It's been raining and thundering so long now, I've got bored of sitting it out under the tree, and I've decided to leave the camera under the relative shelter of these majestic horse chestnut trees. And just while it's eased off a little bit, have another few runs down. See whether there's even more trout wanting to get caught. And the answer is yes. First run down again, and it feels like another trout, and it sounds like another trout. I've had days on chalk streams where it's hard to get through the trout, but I've never known so many fish in one spot. Normally after you've caught one or two, that's it, but they have kept on coming, and good fish as well. Really vigorous scraps. And dropping back in, but it's almost every run down. Look at him, handsome fish. Well, this isn't a bad spot to have a fish, is it? More pinch me moments. Can't quite believe I'm stood somewhere quite so scenic as this and running a float down. It does still feel a bit trouty, shallow, fast, but I've managed to wade out on a really firm gravel slope, and there's a touch more depth over on the far side, and it's got to be worth a go. Even if the fish aren't biting here, sometimes it's more about the place you're fishing than the fish you're catching, and I think this spot is one such swim. It's magnificent with the autumn colours behind as a backdrop. Surprisingly, no fish there, but it really has been a pleasure just to fish this piece of water. Stunning. So I'm going to slowly start making my way back towards the bridge and the car. I think there's a couple more spots I want to try before I settle down for the evening. One of which was back up above the dead tree, and I fancied giving it a go with lots of feed, keeping the maggots going in because it's a nice deep bit of water and he may be a baby. That's a lovely chub result. Lovely little chublet. Slip him back. Spat out loads of maggots. And this is my kind of way to make yourself go back to the car nice and slowly. Got to give it another few goes now. Finally connected with another chub. Well, you guessed it folks, another prime Hampshire Avon trout. Straight back with him and back towards the car for me. After another trek across the fields, and with the sun starting to get lower. I hope you'll understand why I've had this spot in the back of my mind for a place to fish all day. There's a snag directly upstream, and then below that it looks like there's a little bit of depth and a little back eddy created by this tree that's pushing right out into the water with its trunk. And I've actually just been back to the car to grab the chair back over the bridge where I managed to lose some fish earlier, and that looks like a deadly bait if there are any fish down there. And I actually put a couple of bait dropper falls of worm in earlier, trying to do it as quietly as possible, and then went back down to the car to grab the chair, as I say, and I'm just hoping the bit of feed that I put in there earlier might have triggered a bit of feeding activity, but it's always a question of whether there's any fish at home. It does feel like a likely spot. With the sun just about hitting the western horizon, I've decided I'm going to say my goodbyes while there's still a bit of light to film with. I do keep getting little taps, another one there, but I think they're small fish, and I do get the feeling that if there was a big one down there, I might have known about it by now. That's not to say I won't go into the dark, half an hour left to fish with everything crossed, and of course if that tip really does buckle over, you will get to know about it. But otherwise I'm going to say my goodbyes, and I hope you've enjoyed what will probably be a really long but special episode of The Magic of Fishing, a real angling adventure on a really special river, the Hampshire Avon. And again, I'm a really lucky man to have access to such a brilliant fishery as this. Plenty of fish, even if many of them have been trout this time. You stay safe, and I'll see you again soon on the bank.